going through those in the evening time, and I'm actually it's a family time. I'm going to need those TV screens on because I don't have the music in front of me, and I'd rather not sing like this. So, oh, there they are. We just need to put the background screen on. Sorry. This is family time here. We're not perfect. So, I'm also stalling because Carrie's almost here. So I need to make sure that he's here before we start. But he'll be talking with two of our elders, John Rubel and Mike Riles, and just hearing their testimony and how the Lord called them to serve generally in lay ministry, but also specifically here at our church. So we're going to begin, though, as you can see on the screen, by singing just a wonderful, rich prayer that for those of us in Christ includes much of our testimony of how we were once lost, but then the Holy Spirit converted us, gave us new life, opened our eyes to see the beauty of Christ. And then it ends with a wonderful prayer of dedication that our desire is that our life would exist to show the grace of God in our lives and those things that we do, not out of mere duty and not just to earn as a way to earn favor with God, but because of our gratitude for His grace. So as you're able, let's stand together and sing this prayer, O great God. O great God of highest heaven, occupy my lowly heart, own it all and reign supreme, conquer every rebel power. Let no vice or sin remain that resist your holy word. You have loved and purchased me, make me yours forevermore. I was blinded by my sin, had no ears to hear your voice, did not know your love within, had no taste for heaven's joys. Then your Spirit gave me life, opened up your word to me. Through the gospel of your Son, gave me endless hope and peace. Help me now to live a life that's dependent on your grace. Keep my heart and guard my soul from the evils that I face. You are worthy to be praised with my every thought and deed. O great God of highest heaven, glorify your name through me. You are worthy to be praised with my every thought and deed. O great God of highest heaven, glorify your name through me. Thank you. Please be seated.
Well, good to see each of you here tonight. Hope you're enjoying this cold front that came in, and I don't think it got over 90 today, so enjoying that. I made sure I wore a heavy wool jacket tonight. You got to have one of those. But it's so good to be here. Thanks to you men for joining our podcast tonight. It sort of feels like that, like we're doing a podcast and we have some guests. That's how they normally work. So yeah, it's just something we thought of that would be great for all of us, especially those who have come into the church in the last few years. an opportunity to get to know some of the elders better, especially those who are not always up front like the staff is, but are serving faithfully in so many ways in the church. So we are going to do that 3 different times here on Wednesday nights. 2 of our elders each time. What we refer to as our lay elders is not a biblical term really, but a lot of churches use that term to describe the non-staff elders. So you have elders that are being paid to serve on staff, and you have elders that are, earning their income elsewhere outside the church, but yet still serving, in all the functions of an elder. So tonight, John Rubel and Mike Riles, and got a few questions for them. How would you outline the book of Genesis based on the Toledotes, the Greek, the Hebrew Toledotes? No. When I was ordained in California, there was one elder who always asked that question. And I knew he was, and so I was prepared for him. He said, so tell me, how would you outline the book of Genesis based upon the Toledotes? Toledotes have to do with those phrases in Hebrew that say that the generations of, the generations of, the generations of. There are these sections. So Carrie, how would you outline the book of Genesis based upon the Toledotes? And I said, I'd never do that. That was my answer. I would never outline it that way. He pressed on it, and I had the answer, so I gave it to him. So anyway, I won't do that tonight. Better question. Start with John. John's been here the longest of the 2 of you, and longer than, I'm trying to think of all the elders. You've been in the church longer than all the elders on the elder board. Yeah, you haven't been an elder as long as a couple, but in the church. So let's start with you. Were you born? Oh, wait a minute. It says, where were you born? I'm sorry, that's a different question.
Yes, I were born.
You were born. So where'd you grow up? Where were you born? Tell us something about your story.
Well, maybe just to start, I would like to just express gratitude to everybody that's here tonight. We've been advertising this Rubel Riles meeting tonight interview, and my 14-year-old informed me there would probably be very few people here, if anybody, tonight. He left for camp today, and he got that dig in before he left, so I'm grateful y'all have proven him wrong on that. No, so to answer that question, I was born in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, so I want to say an hour south of Canada, maybe, something like that. It's the Great North Woods, and my father had learned of the doctrines of grace at Tennessee Temple Bible College back in the late 70s, and at that time, there was one church up there that he knew of, really in the country he knew, that taught the doctrines of grace. This is before, people were big like Sproul and MacArthur and, Piper, and some of the more modern day guys have brought some of those things to the forefront in a different way. And so he knew one church. So married my mom, moved up there, and that's where I was born.
Because your dad was a pastor.
He was training to be a pastor.
Training to be a
pastor.
pastor.
Pastor up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one reason why he wanted to be up there under that ministry and learning.
So how long were you up there?
Till I was 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your father, by that time, he was pastoring?
So we moved here to North Carolina. He took his first church when I was 10 in Eden. It's on the Virginia-North Carolina border, about an hour north of here. Took his first church, just a little church up there. And so really I consider North Carolina home, and North Carolina. And
yeah, so you're a PK, preacher's kid.
I am.
Yeah, so am I. Let's see what you say about that. How was that growing up as a pastor's son? Do you feel like you were growing up in the fishbowl?
The truth is, I grew up, the church my dad was a part of was very small. And so it was a hard move from us, because we left our family, we left friends, we left the environment we had been born in our whole lives and grown up in, to go to this little church where there was no other kids, no other teenagers. And that was hard, but I look back at those days and realize that was the Lord's hand in my life, because not long after that, he saved me. I think part of what he used in that process was, you're going to sit here being taught like an adult, being with adults, and for the first time in your life really have to think through sin, righteousness, Christ's work. And the Lord used that for me. Yeah.
I'm always remembering my own upbringing when I talk to somebody else who was a pastor's kid, a PK, as they're called, and then my own kids grew up that way, and so there were challenges when you grow up in a pastor's home, just expectations of people and the pressure you feel to be a certain way and some of that. So I know my kids had to work through that out in California, growing up in that environment. But for me personally, I don't think it was until I got a little bit older, into my first years of marriage and so forth, that I began to, I think, really appreciate it. Yeah. That I'm grateful, that I grew up in a home with those loving parents who loved the Lord, and my father was a pastor. I think I remember being embarrassed about that at times, like junior high and high school. I lived in a small town, so everybody knew it, but I still was somewhat embarrassed about it, but repented of that when I got a little bit older, because I am grateful for it. I'll come back to that when you came to Christ, but Mike, how about you? Where are you from?
I'm from Greensboro. I was born there, and actually my mom died when I was a year old, and we moved down to Florida for a couple of years, and then my dad met my stepmother in a tour in Israel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they got married, and she couldn't have children, so she married into 4 children.
Yeah, so you said you were a year old when your mom died. Okay.
And I was 3 when they got married. So
yeah. Essentially, she was the mom who raised you.
Yeah. The only one I knew.
In Greensboro?
Yeah, and well, we moved back up from Florida to Climax.
Oh, okay.
Lived there till I was 8, and then we moved to Greensboro, and
okay.
I just grew up there.
Florida. There's no mountains down there.
No. The only thing I remember is the fire ants.
Fire ants?
Traumatic, yes.
Lots of tree frogs. They're the little frogs that stick on all the patio doors and things like that when you're a kid. That's kind of cool, actually. My kids thought that was great when we visit there. But, yeah, so you went to school then, and a little bit in Florida, but also Greensboro?
No, we moved to Greensboro before I started school.
Oh, I got to see. So it really was. That's where home became for you. Yeah. Let me just keep going. So
not a preacher's kid, by the way.
Not a preacher's kid.
Far from it.
But when did you come to Christ? What brought that all to pass?
That's an interesting story. Basically, when I was 10 years old, I went to church for about 6 months, and there was a bad experience at that church, so we left it. But I was there long enough to learn a few things. One of them was God is sovereign. That was kind of really drilled in, and I got that. It's true. But one thing they taught was once saved, always saved, no matter what. And so they had taken me into a room and kind of emotionally manipulated me to repeat the prayer and all that kind of stuff. So I thought I was good. And so for the next 13 years, I lived out the no matter what part after I left that church, until I got married. And about 3 months after I was married, my wife and I were having a colorful language, loud discussion.
Intense discussion.
Yeah, in the hallway of our house. And I had this habit of breaking things, and I had a really bad temper. I never hit anybody in anger, but I put my fist through the bathroom door right next to her, and the look on her face is something I won't forget. She rushed off to the bedroom, and I went and plopped down on the couch in the living room, and I was just really thinking things through, and I flipped on the TV, and there's not like a choose what you want to watch back then. This is a long time ago, y'all. So I just flipped channels to find something interesting, and like the second thing I landed on, it looked like what had just happened in our hallway playing out on the screen, except for the colorful language. And this guy put his fist through the wall. And I'm like, this is wild. Now, I always preface this with, God can draw a straight line with a crooked stick. So this was a particular ministry that does dramatizations of people coming to Christ you may have seen on TV in the past. I won't even name it. But anyway, it was very, very close to what I had just experienced in my own house, and it just shook me. And so we had a Bible. I don't know why, but we did. And I cried out to the Lord. I just, I did believe he was sovereign. I don't know why, but I did. And I said, Lord, I need your help. I can't do this. I've just made my wife afraid of me. And show me something in your word. And so I don't suggest Bible bingo either. You should have a plan and go after the Bible letter with reason and a plan. But I opened it up to 1 John chapter 1, and I read, if we say we walk with the Lord and we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. I messed that up a little bit. I used to have that memorized. But anyway, it was just a thing where I was deceiving myself and the truth wasn't in me. But if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. That's what I read. And it just felt like God was poking me and saying, that's you. You think you're okay with me, but you're walking in darkness. And so right then and there, without really understanding the word repentance or the concept, I did. I poured out my heart to the Lord, and I begged for forgiveness, and I confessed to him, I can't do this. You have to do this for me. I don't have the strength. I don't have the ability, but I don't want to lose my wife. I don't want to lose my marriage. So, Lord, fix me, because I can't. And the next morning, I shocked her. When she got up, I said, hey, we need to start going to church. And that was how it began.
Wow. What year was that, approximately?
January of 94.
94, wow. So, John, you grew up in a Christian home, your parents, in that little church. So what were the factors that led you to Christ? Just what your parents were sharing with you, or what you're hearing in Sunday school, or what?
Yeah, much different than Mike, obviously. I was raised in a good home, good parents, 2 good sisters, good kid. Never was in trouble, had any issues. But when we had moved to North Carolina, my dad took his first church. Again, for the first time in my life, I was really being forced to sit, listen, participate, really being taught like an adult. And I still remember at that time even struggling with the sins of a 10-year-old. I remember that. A lot of stuff that we just kind of look at as being insignificant, but they were an affront to God, and I knew that, and knew that I was worthy and due his punishment. That was around the corner for me. And I remember crying out to the Lord and talking through it with my parents, and the Lord really saved me in that. I really believe that, yeah.
So what transpired in your life those years then after that?
Till today?
Yeah.
How far do you want to go?
Every day. Tell us what happened every day
Well,
from that moment.
Go back 5,062
going to work this morning.
days. No. Again, saved at 10, raised in Eden. That's where I went to high school. Eden is a...
So they have like running water there and everything up there?
They have what?
They have running water and stuff like that up there?
Barely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Eden was very much of a textile town back in the day, fabrics, and so growing up, I remember thinking, "This is home. I'm staying here." But I'd actually started working in a grocery store when I was 14, and had been working there for 5 years, all through high school. When I had a job offer for actually the company I'm with to this day here in Winston-Salem, and so I graduated high school. Went on vacation for a week, started working in Winston-Salem. And about that same time, my dad had left that ministry, moved on to a different ministry in Memphis, Tennessee, and so I decided to move to Winston. And at that time, my grandparents were coming to Twin City, and I knew Jim Newcomer. I met Jim Newcomer, knew what Jim Newcomer believed. This is the pastor before Carrie was here. And knew that that's what I wanted to be sitting under. It was doctrines of grace teaching, expository, and so I never even visited another church. I literally went from there to here.
Yeah.
So
What year was that you came here, you think?
I've been here 24 years, so 2002, I think.
And so you've been working for that company all this time? Wow.
Autoteria, yep, the Purple Crow.
Yeah.
You'll see our trucks on the street, on the roads, and you can't get it out of your mind. It's burned into your memory.
Yeah.
Big, colorful trucks.
For whatever reason, I keep calling it the Purple Cow, and I don't know why I do that, but it's wrong.
Yeah.
It is the Purple Crow. Obviously, that makes a lot more sense, a purple
Yeah,
crow,
yes, much.
than a purple
much.
cow. I mean, who's seen a purple cow, But purple crows, I mean, they're everywhere, But so anyway, you came here 24 years ago, something like that, and a light shone down from heaven on Stacy's head, or what? I mean, how did that?
Yeah. No, so
Because she wasn't here when you came.
she was not here. Her family came, I think, a year and a half, 2 years after me, something like that. The Kleins, so Stacy's parents are here, part of the church, and her sister as well. And yeah, so when I came, I was actually, the church had just called under Jim Newcomer the very first youth pastor the church had ever had before. Maybe the very first associate pastor, I'm not sure. And I came on as his very first youth staff person ever in the history of this church. And so I had been doing that for a little while.
Just a little side comment. I believe when I came, you were serving in that ministry.
Yeah, I was.
Still.
I was still
Middle
serving
school,
with
junior
Matt
high,
doing
and so
that,
forth,
yeah. I think I did youth ministry for 10 or 12 years, something like that. And but at any rate, Stacy was in college, or graduated college. She was working at that time. And she has 2 younger siblings who are actually in the youth group. And so I'm actually serving them. They're part of the youth ministry. And at some point, Stacy joined the youth ministry. And that's when the light started shining.
Yeah.
You know?
So she joined serving in the youth ministry. So you had no rules back then about this kind of
No.
thing? I mean, a lot of churches have rules about that. If you're serving in a youth
Right.
ministry, you can't date somebody else in the youth ministry. That's common out there.
Yeah.
They had the rules, you just broke them or something.
Well, I think youth staff's okay. You know, the actual kids might be a problem, but the staff was okay. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, but I'd actually gotten to know her own siblings and loved them. They were good kids. And so before I even really got to know her, I was already getting a sense of what their family's like, what her siblings are like. And yeah.
Yeah. All right, so you got to tell this, though. So what year did you get married?
2000 and, wait, 2005. 2005.
Okay, strike that from the live stream and the recording if you can. Okay, we need press on this. What year?
2005.
Okay, 2000. Is that correct? Okay, that is correct. The audience says that is correct.
If you ask me my kids' birthdays, I'm toast.
Yeah,
I'm
you know,
done.
I don't remember
It's
birthdays.
never gonna happen.
Yeah, no, I can't remember my kids' birthdays, so I always refer people to Pam, to keep that knowledge. I know they're born, they're alive, I love them. Those are the basics. And yeah, I can't even remember my wife's name. I call her Honey and Dear, things like that. But no. But you got to tell people how you proposed to Stacy. I think this is a great story.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, our very first date was July 31st, 30th, like I said. Stacy, do you need to do something back there somewhere? I know it was the end of July. And by December, we had already been going down that road talking about marriage. Again, great benefit, the family being here and just knowing where they were theologically. That fast forwarded some things for us. And so I contacted Salem, the Tanglewood Festival of Lights, and asked them if I could build a light display that said, "Marry me, Stacy." And they let me do that. And I put it up after much welding burns and trials and injuries. I got that up and
So I'm trying to picture
Took it
this.
through.
So if you've ever been to the Festival of Lights out at Tanglewood, you pay the little booth there, and you go down the main road, and there's usually stuff starting right there, like an
Yeah.
arch over the road, welcome or Merry Christmas, and then there's things jumping, the lights jumping across. So somewhere in there, you
it
put
was
up this
literally
thing?
at shelter number 2 where we used to always have our church picnics.
Okay.
Right there across from the golf course. Yeah. So I built it. It was a Sunday, built it. We'd actually sent out a connection to the whole church so that everybody could know and other people from the church went through.
So that's my next
as
question.
well.
How are you going to make sure Stacy sees this thing that you've done? You
Yeah,
didn't leave it
well,
up the whole Christmas
There was
season.
probably some disappointed Stacys that went through that night. I don't know. But it was actually funny because as we were coming up to it, we actually took Ken and Vicky's minivan, and Stacy's sister went with us and some friends. And as we're coming up to it, I'm kind of watching her at the side of my eye, and she's like, "Oh, look at this over here." And the light fixture's over here. "Look at this over here. I think this is new." And I'm like, well, look over here. Look over here. And we finally pulled up to it, and I kind of dragged her out to it to get down on my knee and propose. And I think it was still a bit surreal. Like I'm not sure entirely knew what was going on until I got her out of the car.
So what did it actually say?
It said, "Marry me, Stacy."
So did you understand what was going on when you saw that?
I did at that point, I think, yeah. We pulled over and we're getting out. And, I think somebody from the church had actually pulled up behind. They got out, and so everybody's yelling and laughing. And yeah, I knew at that point.
So when she said no that night, what did you?
You got to be pretty confident before you pull a trick like that.
Yeah, you gotta be pretty sure this is going to
That's
happen.
right.
Yeah, that's awesome. So again, just like everybody's conversion story is not the same, everybody's meeting story is not the same. I haven't heard that you put lights up in Greensboro somewhere, but so what year did you and Amanda meet? Is she from Greensboro as well?
Yeah, actually, we both were from Greensboro. That's where we met. I was actually an assistant manager for Domino's Pizza, and she was a phone girl. That's what they called them back then.
For Domino's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And one day they asked me to go pick her up and give her a ride somewhere, an event she was working. And at the time, I didn't talk to her at all because, well, I was dating someone else. And
All right, let's press on this just a little bit. No. Who is this other? No, we won't ask that. So you're dating somebody else, but you're giving her a ride. So
I
you
don't
rethinking-
even remember her name.
Okay, good. That's a good answer. Immaterial to the story of my life. So you're taking her to giving her a ride there?
Yeah, so she had said something to her own manager about how nice I was, which was crazy because I was like completely, keeping my eyes forward, not talking to her. This was before I was a Christian, so it's crazy I was that way. But so he's like, "Oh, I'll tell him you said so at the next manager's meeting." So she was real embarrassed, and then ended up working there about a month later. In the meantime, I had moved on from the other girl, the unnamed.
So when it came to propose, did you spell that out with pepperoni and the pizza, kind of like his thing, or?
No, but there was no way she could say no because every Friday night when she was working with me, I would slap out a dough, and she could be further away than that flower pot there, and I could land it on her head when she wasn't looking. Every Friday night.
That's another way, to throw pizza dough. I think in some cultures in the world, that's considered, a way to do that. So
It was our way.
it was their way to do that. And so you wore her down with the pizza dough. So what year did you guys get married?
We got married in 93, October 16th. Yes.
Is she? There she is. Okay, I mean, double, fact check here.
He had time to think about that. No fair.
Yeah, that wasn't on the list to ask you, but yeah, and so obviously at some point things are becoming more difficult for you, but you come to life. So back to that, you tell her you're going to go to church. What was her response?
Well, being just completely naive as I was, and she just went along with me, I just, being completely new to the faith and not understanding things, I just felt, oh, she's a believer too because she went to church with me. And the change in me was just drastic. It was like immediately. I used to break things. I broke her hair dryer, things like that. I actually cracked a couple of windshields with my fist, road rage. So, I mean, complete change. My anger was just gone. And she saw that, and it made an impression on her, but she played along. She wasn't actually saved, and it all came to a head on Halloween of 94.
So how much longer are we talking about? Like several
That would
months?
have been,
go by?
yeah, that would have been 10 months later.
So
And-
are you though imbibing everything about this new faith? And
Yeah, yeah.
How'd you pick a church?
Well, actually, that's an interesting story. There was a guy that used to work for me when I was an assistant manager at a different store, and he always had a really good testimony. He walked the walk. It was very clear that he was a real believer. And so I called him. No, I didn't call him up. I had prayed for the Lord to help me find a church. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to start. I basically poured out my heart without anybody there, kind of thing. So I'm like, where do I go? What do I do? And I prayed for the Lord to help me find a place to go. Well, that very night that I was praying that prayer, someone took a shot at him.
Literal shot.
Yep. In Greensboro, if you were a really good worker, really good at your job, and you ever had an incident like that and you were afraid to go back out in that neighborhood or that area, they would offer you the transfer to this one store that was like really nice part of town and never had any troubles. And so it just happened to be the store I was at. And I saw him like within 2 or 3 days of having that prayer, and I asked him where he went, and that's how I started going to church. So.
All right, so what do you mean it came to a head several months later? She's going along faking it, but...
Yeah, she had said she was doing certain things, not doing other things, and it was just kind of me just being completely aloof, just believed everything she said, didn't think anything of it, and it turns out, she had been lying to me about some things, but oddly enough, it just hit her one night, same kind of deal. She was turned on the TV, and there on the TV, she saw somebody talking about iniquity, and it just gripped her heart. She knew that he was talking about her sin, and it wasn't long before she just broke down crying, and she called me and confessed her sin and all this stuff. And the amazing thing at the time, because of my theology, being Arminian, I was mad. I was pretty bitter and angry with her for lying all that time. It wasn't until only a few years ago when I rethought about how that time was, what I missed out on in not having a good soteriology of understanding that God saved her in his time, and it had nothing to do with her choosing to wait, choosing to lie, all those things. I should have just been thankful to the Lord that he saved my wife and that I didn't have to have an unequal yoke all those years. And it was just something I missed out on. Instead of celebrating the joy and the blessing of the Lord saved my wife, I lost that opportunity until many years later, and I finally got to praise him for it.
Somewhere along the way, you start to have a family, both of you. Come back to you, John, too. But so tell everybody who makes up the rest of your family. What do you have?
Well, I have Joshua, Seth, and Noah. Seth is over there. Noah's serving on my safety team out there somewhere. And my oldest also has 2 children now, so I'm a grandfather of 2, a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. So.
Okay, so I remember a little bit of this part now. I don't know how many times you changed churches along the way, but somewhere along the way you're starting to grow in your theology. So when I came 20 years ago, you guys were not here. You were at another church in the area, but so what was going on in your thinking, and how did you come to be at Twin City?
Yeah, so one of the good things about my job, I'm a mailman. I get to listen to podcasts, sermons, and things like that, and I was listening to stuff all day long. Unless I have a contact with a customer, I'm just listening to stuff. And what ended up happening was I would be listening to something and they would say something silly like, hey, let's go listen to the Desert Fathers to learn how to pray. I'm like, those are Catholic mystics. They're going to hell. Why would we listen to them to learn how to pray? So I would drop somebody like that, and I'd pick somebody else up. And as it went on for a few months, I was just finding more and more of the silly stuff going on in the church in the people that I was listening to. And I'd drop them, and I'd pick somebody else up. Till finally one day, it just hit me. I was like, wait, everybody I'm listening to is a Calvinist. How did this happen? I went to John Wesley College. It just didn't fit. And it just kind of dawned on me, maybe they're onto something. They're not falling for the silly stuff in the church. So it just had me thinking, maybe I'm wrong about this. And then about 3 or 4 months later, maybe, I was on my computer at home, and suddenly I couldn't see from here over. Nothing. My left hand went numb. Left side of my mouth went numb. So as we're on the way to the hospital, I didn't tell her all the symptoms because I didn't want her to completely freak out, but I'm running through the list of things. Okay, all the passwords to all the bills are in this file folder on the computer. You can pay everything. I'm just running through the things. Hey, if I don't make it, she needs to know this stuff. And then I got to, well, wait, what about church? And our church experience at that time was every Sunday on the way home, we would actually ask our kids what they learned in case we had to correct it. And the thought never occurred to me. I was kind of at this place, I felt, to make a difference is what I was doing. I was trying to make a difference.
At that church.
At that church. And then I realized, I'm taking my family to this place. What am I doing? What if something happens to me? There's nobody, and the thought occurred to me, could these people guide my family through my death, And immediately I just knew they couldn't. And that kind of started the ball rolling, and I ended up going to the pastor and talking to him about all the different things we saw, issues and problems, and, they didn't guard the pulpit, they didn't guard the Sunday school. So many things were taught, even word faith stuff was taught sometimes. Just depends on who taught, because anybody that was like, hey, I'll teach, So that was the kind of thing that was going on, and it didn't take long before I found out the pastor seemed like he was taking it seriously and actually going to let me speak to the elders about these things, my concerns. And then finally he said, no, we can't do that. So I was like, see ya. So, and then, because I had been listening to things like Wretched Radio, I don't know if you're familiar, Todd Friel, and had been put onto tms.edu, both of those pointed to this church. I had no idea there was a, TMS grad in the area. And it wasn't that I was actually at that time changing my soteriology, but when I came here, I was like, okay, I'm here. Because the first day we came, I asked my sons, what did you learn? They were in John Rubel's class, and they said, imputation. Suddenly my eyes started to sweat. You know what that means. But it was seriously, I was just, this is what church is supposed to be, And so I was like, I got to figure this out. So that Wednesday, I'm trudging around, walking around in the snow, delivering mail, and I'm listening to John MacArthur's series on the doctrines of grace. And I had never actually listened to someone who believed in the doctrines of grace explain the doctrines of grace. It had always been people who were critiquing it. And it's just not accurately portrayed on the other side. So about 2 or 3 sermons in, I was just thinking, how could I have missed this all this time? How did I miss this? And so I called Amanda, and she said, oh, well, church is canceled. And I was like, no, we're going to have church. And when I got home, I had marked, different sections that I wanted to listen to. I set the boys down and her down. I had the phone on the coffee table and was just listening to different portions and talking about what was going through my mind at the time. And to her credit, what took me 6 months to God to fix me and correct me on Took her all of 2 weeks to settle in. So
Yeah, so what year then was that you came here?
January of 2011.
Yeah, I remember when you guys came, and you told me just a little bit at that time, what was going on at the previous church, and you just couldn't be there anymore. And I remember you saying something about that, about, where would your family be left, if the Lord took you. Interesting, you're not the only one that's ever, in the years I've been here, I can think of one or two others, actually, that came and met with me about the same thing. Just showed up to visit, and we were much smaller back in those days, and we'd have one service, and if it was this full on a Sunday morning, we were all trying to figure out, man, what's the Lord doing? This place there's so many people now all of a sudden. But there's been those moments where someone has said, similar story, we're in this church, another church, but here's what's been happening in my life, and here's what I've been growing in, and I've just been now listening to what's being preached and taught differently. And, I've gone and met with the elders, and they're not going to listen. I'm realizing I'm not going to be an agent of change to turn that ship another direction. I need to get out of there. And one in particular was definitely meeting with me because by that time he did have a terminal diagnosis. And what really overwhelmed him was, I can't leave my family at this church where we're at. And I remember when he met with me, the main thing he was asking me was, will you take care of my family when I'm gone and teach them the truth? I said, absolutely. And, some time went by, and he is with the Lord today, and his family's been here. But
That actually reminds me, I didn't finish one part of my story. It was a painless migraine, not a stroke.
Oh, I was going to ask you if you lived, because
Yeah, I did.
just to complete that little part. One more thing, go back to that. So you've been a mailman. That's not the only thing you call that. What's the other label you put on your job? I love this.
Professional conveyor of written correspondence.
A professional conveyor of written correspondence. I've heard him tell people that. Yeah, this is what I'm a professional conveyor of written
just sounds
correspondence.
better.
And they're going, oh, yeah. It sounds like he works for the CIA or something. I don't know. He says, I'm a mailman. But so you started working for the Postal Service what year? How long have you been with them?
Just over 22 years.
Okay. So dominoes to there, one way or the other, yeah. All right, John, so you're rocking along here. You got married, and you're both in the church serving. So when I came, you were just this young couple in the church, serving, and I was trying to get to know everybody. But refresh my memory just a little bit. You were a deacon at that time. You were on the pulpit committee. I forgot. What was your role in all that at that time?
Yeah, I'd like to remind Kerry the only reason he's at the church is because of me. So I was on your pulpit committee. I had no business being there. That was a different era with the church, and by God's grace, we'll never be anywhere near there again. But I don't think I became a deacon for several more years after that. Yeah, we really spent a lot of time serving the youth ministry, both of us. And then at some point I migrated into the adult ministry, taught Sunday school class there for years. Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that, you being in the pulpit committee. Of course, I'm starting to candidate with this church, and I don't know anybody, but starting to get the names of the pulpit committee. I don't remember everybody who was on it. You were on, Steve Broser was on that committee. I seem to feel like Steve was maybe the chairman of that committee. What I do remember is a couple, I don't remember their names now, well, one of them do, but it was in my first year here that they both left. After they brought me here, they realized they'd made a mistake, and they went somewhere else, Right. But John will remember those days as well. All right, so you're serving in the church, and John has shared some of this already from his perspective of what they were going through in the church. Before 2006, there were some rocky times, and it's on the 70th video, the documentary that we made for the 70th anniversary of the church. I thought what he shared on there was very apropos, very helpful. of just how they were viewing everything that was going on, because Jim was a faithful guy preaching the word, and if the sovereignty of God was in the Bible, in the text, that's what he would preach. If something about church government and leadership was there, that's what he preached, and so forth. So I appreciate so much how the Lord used him just for a handful of years here. But that did create, and you can correct me if this is wrong, but from my perspective, what I picked up was almost two churches began to form, here. That there were those who really appreciated all that he was teaching, and some new people coming, appreciating it, but others who didn't. And so that led to two really severe, unfortunate splits in the church. One had happened already, and Jim had left to go to another ministry, so the associate pastor was here serving and holding things together and doing everything. And when I called to candidate, this is, I think, maybe on the documentary, but I just called him up to get some information about the church, and he told me about the split they'd already gone through. And in that phone call, he said, and I need to tell you, we're going to have another split probably in about 2 weeks from now. Now, if you're candidating, looking for a church, and this is what you're hearing on the phone, normally you would say, well, listen, I got to go, but I'm going to pray for you guys. I really am, because this is some real challenges. But as he began to share what he and some others, like John and some others, hoped the church would become, and the direction they wanted to go theologically and practically from a government standpoint and all that kind of stuff, I was intrigued by that. And was like, well, I would like to help. I'd like to come and help. And one thing led to another, and I did. So John paid off the rest of the committee, and they asked me to come. And I showed up and trying to figure out what to do, as a pastor. But somewhere along the way, I don't remember how many years it was, but when we back up a little bit, we took about a year since they brought me here with the request and the belief that we need to be an elder-led church. And so one of the things on your list is to lead us, help us to become an elder-led church. So that required some time. Those who were still here after the splits, they'd already been taught some of these things, but still, I needed to teach on some of that again, and we needed to rewrite the doctrinal statement and the bylaws. So we took about a year or so to rewrite the bylaws and rewrite the doctrinal statement in some areas. And then, I guess around January of 2007, we voted ourselves out of the old bylaws and out of being a congregationally ruled church. We voted ourselves into be an elder-led church. So the other associate and I were the only two guys, so we had to be the core of the elder team, but we needed to start forming an elder team. And so we ended up asking two more men in the church, including a man named Jay Newland, who had come at that time, he and his family, and asked them to be on that first elder team. So there were four of us, four elders on the first elder board. But the church was slowly growing, and at some point we needed to add more elders, and so we tried to think through how to do that and so forth, and eventually we added maybe two more, I think it was, and three, counting Jeff Williamson. And so we had those original four, and then Jeff and two others, so I guess that adds up to be 7. I left my slide rule at home, or else I could do that faster, but somewhere around there. But we're growing, and we need more elders. So we sort of put together an elder and training process of whatever it was at the time. And we had two young men on our mind, John Rubel and Kevin Bell. So tell me about those years. You were in some sort of training process. Why did you even agree to that? Did you have a growing desire to be an elder? How did that come to pass?
I think that pastoral ministry, being a pastor, even full-time ministry, was something that was really always on my mind. I mean, you grow up as in a pastor's home, you see ministry firsthand, teaching firsthand, study, that life. And so I think a lot of my life, I wrestled with that. Is this what the Lord would have me to do? Is this what I should do? Much of my life, even recently, I've wrestled with that question, thought about it. And I can't say that being an elder per se was really even a thing. I was raised like a lot of the people here, I didn't even know what an elder was. Like, that was a foreign concept to me in a Baptist church. Until Twin Cities started adopting that, and I started myself biblically learning what does that look like. And I think that it's at that time, that I realized that's a way I could serve, give myself towards pastoral ministry without it being vocational. And I really think, over the years, as I've thought about it more, we're told to pray for laborers. We're told the harvest is red hot, if you will. But at the end of the day, the church needs stable, godly men. It desperately needs elders, pastors, staff pastors, men who've given their life to this, desperately need more people to wrap their hands around them and to help them. And I think over the years of being a lay elder, I've really, in my soul, have embraced that more and more, like that God has called me to that. That is a great place I can be of help and assistance. And even the longer I've been an elder, Carrie, we regularly are talking to other churches, men who are desperate for elders, desperate for help, because they're by themselves, and they've got questions, and they don't know what to do, and several churches leaning on our elder board for advice and counsel, and just seeing the help and the need for that, and just realizing I think in many ways, a great calling the Lord's given me that I've been able to fulfill and be a part of for years now.
So let's talk about that time of training, because I remember that time. In the Lord's providence.
You had nothing to say, right?
Huh?
There was nothing to train, right?
In the Lord's providence, Jay his heart began to grow in a desire to be in full-time ministry. He had graduated from Master's Seminary as well. So Jay had moved on. I forgot what year that was, but in the midst of some of this that was about to happen to down near the Lake Norman area, past that, to a church there. And so we lost Jay there, a good elder, but the elder board that was existing then, at some point, again, I don't remember the time of Jay's leaving, but there began to be growing tension amongst the leadership. The church was not fully aware of it, but growing tension among the leaders of realizing we were not all unified, and there was at least a couple of elders going a different direction than the others. And that tension began to increase, and as I tell people, the cloth was stretching, and it was getting tight, and at some points it's going to tear. And so we had a couple of elder meetings that were very intense that ended up even two of the elders resigning and leaving the church, and some elders meetings after that talking through what had happened and where we're going from here, and the fact that we're still not unified and all that kind of stuff. But what I remember is John and Kevin were attending the meetings as elders in training, just observing all this and listening. And so how would you describe that training process you went through, John?
I didn't know you really wanted me to get into all that.
Yeah. Inquiring people want to know.
So we had been invited, Kevin and I, to join the elder board and to start the elder and training process. And I think we had had maybe 2 meetings before these other elders submitted a resignation, sent a letter, asked you to read it in front of the church. And at that time...
These were hard times, folks.
They were.
Very hard times.
And at that time, I had this perspective of it's almost like the elders are up here. And the rest of us are trying to be like that, almost like they're not as human as we are. And very quickly, that got smashed. And I remember...
Some of that was smashed when they hired me, and he was on that committee, but there was still a little remnant left. And now it's smashed.
But I just remember through that, Kevin and I just thinking, what have we got ourselves into? We've literally just started attending, and there is all sorts of baggage going on here and struggles. But even that taught me some really super valuable lessons early on about what does it look like to shepherd, what does it look like to work through problems, to resolve things, to be unified. It was a bit of hard training at first. I remember Carrie coming to us maybe maybe within another month or two, a couple months after that, and saying, what are you guys thinking? Are you ready to join the elder board? Like, how are you feeling? And I just said, I don't have any idea. Like, what? No, I'm not ready. Like, I've got to understand more of what's going on. And that took a good while to wrestle through and resolve. But, yeah, training by fire.
And the Lord, guided us through that process. It was a hard time for the church to go through. At some point, we had to, on a Sunday morning, explain to the congregation, there's some stuff going on that you don't know about. And that was a very hard Sunday, for me especially, but very hard Sunday. And there's been disunity, and two elders. By that time, they knew that a couple elders had left the church, and a couple of deacons, and so forth. And so, but anyway, just fast forward through a lot of that. The Lord began to work through all that, and the end result, at some point, was we basically were starting over as an elder board. And so we had 4 elders again, if I remember right. But it was Jeff and I, and you and Kevin. And that had to have been the elder board once it was sort of like the dust settled. And then, the church, the Lord began to just bless the church still. And we were sincerely seeking to serve him and to do what was right. And we began to add on more elders. And so somewhere in there, Mike and his family here, before I get into that, tell the church then, somewhere along the way, you and Stacy began to have children. So what's your family made up of?
Yeah, so we have 3 boys, just like Mike and Amanda. My oldest is in the Army. He is about to start college classes, finish out his college, his bachelor's. Good chance of deployment, and so that's just something our family's wrestling with. We've got a second son who is 16 and a 14-year-old. They're both at camp right now, and Lord's been good.
It's been great to see. When you're in a place long enough, you see families start to grow and have children, and then the children grow up, and then at some point they're going to the Army and they're getting married and all kinds of things.
Just hold on.
Yeah.
Slow down a little bit there.
I didn't mean that particular one as going to the Army and getting married. I'm just saying philosophically in general statement there. But
Okay.
he might. But anyway, it's been a real blessing to see both these families grow and their boys, and to see John and Mike and their wives as well. But just as elders, see John and Mike shepherd their families and take that seriously and try to have an impact on their boys and try to guide them and teach them what's right and so forth. And I don't know, from afar, not really afar, but just off to the side, observing that all these years, it's been a great encouragement to me, and I appreciate your families so much. But anyway, so somewhere, I don't remember now what year, and I don't remember the order, those 4 had to be on the elder board, for sure, by the time you came on the elder board. But over a short period of time there was you and Wes, there was...
I think then it was Danny, and then it was Mike, I believe. Is that right?
Actually,
then we hired Danny. So that was about 11 and a half years ago. And so we were forming a staff again. So we had during the midst of all that, we had an associate pastor and a youth pastor, and they both left and resigning on successive Sundays. That was a hard time. And we're reforming the staff. And so I flew out to California and had dinner with this young couple. I had married them, Danny and Emily, but they were in seminary. He had finished college and was in seminary, and so I crashed into their life and said, hey, how would you like to come back to Twin City and be on staff? And so the Lord worked all that out. They came here. So he would have come on the elder board at that time. And so then somewhere in there, Mike. Yeah. So what year was that?
I think about 9 years. I can't remember for sure, but actually Danny, me, and Kevin were all voted on the same day.
Okay, so you, Danny, and Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Wong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so by the time you came on the elder board, then that was only just a year and a half or 2 years later after Danny came, at most. Then we hired Kevin, and so y'all came on. So up until that, what had been going on in your heart? Why, when we approached you, I don't remember how we did it or what was said, but we did. Had you had a growing desire to serve in that way? Was that a shock to you or what?
Yeah, actually it was it was interesting that the timing of it, because I was talking to Amanda, and John occasionally would reach out to, get breakfast or whatever, and he had done that again. It's like, we're going to talk. And I was like, I've been really feeling like I would like to actually begin a process of just being trained to be an elder, I don't know, maybe 10 years from now or something. That's literally what I was thinking. And so that morning, I meet with John, and we got to the point where I shared that with him. He says, why 10 years? Like, well, I need time. And he's like, no, actually, I was going to talk to you about the same thing today. So that's kind of how that went down. And so it was really interesting how that happened. But it was, just all God's plan coming to fruition. And I really think that the process was really good, and it was really good the way that they brought me in. And like John, I felt like, that's why I thought 10 years. It's like the elders, but we've all got feet of clay, and when you get in there, you kind of figure that out. The best of men are men at best, all of us. So there's nothing special. We're just trying to do the best we can, and God gives us a burden to help minister to people, and that's what we do.
It's very important for elders to keep that in mind, whether staff elders or lay elders. If you just want to use that term, we're all elders, but you can't have people trying to build their own kingdom in some way, that's what they're looking for, or they're looking for the name or the credentials or just the title, 1 Timothy 3 says it's a good work that you desire. You desire the office, you desire the work. And we've had even some more discussions about that recently, just trying to understand it better. We're constantly growing as an elder board and as individuals and studying things together. We're going through a book together right now on marriage and divorce and abandonment and abuse and things like that, and how to shepherd those kind of things. We've gone through other types of books and had many we call them elder sharpening discussions along the way. Every elder meeting's an elder sharpening experience in some form or other, just because of the things we talk about. But sometimes we do it strategically by studying certain topics. And but it becomes very apparent, and we've understood this more lately, that it's a desire not for recognition or to build your own kingdom. It's a desire of the work overall. We all have different levels of giftedness, and so we're not all used the same way. But what we share, and I'm articulating some things even better for the first time, even for me, but we desire the weight of the ministry. We're willing to take that on. And so it's not coming in with a bag of tricks. We're going to fix this and this and this, and boy, I'm going to be the best thing that ever happened to this elder board. I'm going to straighten these guys out. It's none of that. The best of men are men at best. We have feet of clay. We're members of this church family, but the Lord has given us the opportunity and a calling to serve him in this way. But it's not even just a focus on one little aspect of the church, even though we'll get into that in a moment. They have particular ministries they serve in. But separate from that, there is a desire to carry the weight that goes along with being a leader of this church, in a ministry of this church. And so all the ministries of the church, we feel that weight. Everything that goes on, we assume that responsibility for that. And that's what it is that you have a desire to do, to be an elder. It's not just a desire, man, I want to teach more. Or I have this desire, I want to get involved with this. You may have that desire, but you're willing to take the office and the work that goes with it because you love the church so much and you want to be used by the Lord to help the church, okay? And it is a weight, no doubt about it. Some nights and some meetings you feel that weight more than others, but that doesn't mean that the elders don't serve in particular ways. So how do you guys serve in the church, John? What are your primary areas of ministry? Even though you carry the weight overall, and again, John and Mike and all the elders, they'll enter in on any topic we talk about. So it doesn't matter whether it's children's ministry or student ministry or counseling ministry or finances or whatever. We're sensing, all of us, the weight of all those things. But yet we also have particular focuses, whatever.
Yeah.
What's yours, John?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of things over the years. Primarily, I'm helping with Danny, leading our Sojourners Sunday School class. So Danny probably teaches 2/3 of the time. I teach a third. We have some other guys. Ben will jump in from here or there. I'm actually studying to teach the next 2 weeks right now. Then on top of that, I do a lot of the administrative work for the church. So I do the payroll here. It becomes a helpful way for me to threaten Carrie and the staff, like,
We try to
hope I don't
stay
mess up your pay.
on John's good side. We
Yeah.
try to stay as staff guys.
Yeah.
We will do whatever John wants.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do the payroll here, and I work hand in hand with our treasurer and the finances, and so I'm kind of the go-between for most all financial things between the elders and those who are ministering with finances around here. And just a lot of administrative stuff. It's what I do in my job at work. I'm the HR director for my company. I've done a lot of operational insurance, a lot of things like that, and so I just help give oversight with some of that here.
And I'm so grateful for what we all are as elders, grateful for what John does to, he and our treasurer, to just stay on top of the details and making sure we're compliant with IRS regulations and doing things that are kosher and taking care of the Lord's money. I mean, it's a stewardship. So they're very careful with that, and we have checks and balances built in and all that kind of stuff so that we can have a clear conscience with how money is being spent for ministry. But so I appreciate that. I remember, I don't remember the day or anything, but I remember the transition that happened with John taking over, supervising, starting the budgetary process every year. So that we've changed the date of our fiscal year. For years, the fiscal year, the financial year was corresponded to the calendar year, January 1st through December 31st. And somewhere along the way, we realized what a lot of churches realize. You're working on the budget during the holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that was really hard to do, to keep up with stuff, and we're off and, gone and things. So eventually we moved it to what it is now. I think there was a transition period in there we had to go through, to get from one budget fiscal year to a different type. But now we start September 1st, and it goes through August 31st.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example.
March. Yeah, okay, 31st.
I'll give you an example. So when I took over as treasurer, I'm used to business. I'm used to zero base. We plan to spend $1, we spend $1. And so I built the church budget like that. And the very first time I presented a budget to them, the previous treasurer had left, and so I was doing this for the first time ever, sitting down. I presented a budget like that. And I remember Kerry, and this just kind of gives you an idea of some of the ways he's mentored and helped me and other men along the way. But I remember him saying, hey, let's go get lunch tomorrow or sometime. It's like, okay, what have I done now? And I remember him just saying, what you presented was a good budget. That's a good business budget. But he said, this is the church. This is God's people. This is God's money. And we want to live with an element of faith that the Lord is going to bless us, take care of us. He's going to grow us. And if he doesn't, then we might have to backtrack and adjust. And so he said, I don't want you just to do, to the penny budget. Let's put an element of faith in there and trust the Lord is going to grow us and take care of us. And so, in business, that about makes your skin crawl, but we did that. And man, that's probably been almost 15 years. I think there's maybe been 1 year in that whole time we haven't exceeded. And it was a great lesson to me in just even being taught that. So I don't have all the financial expertise.
Well, it was a great help to me, and because starting out when we first came, it was the other associate pastor and I. We were doing all that. We were putting the budget together and giving that to the treasurer and fix it or something. But we were having to spend all that time, looking at the ministries. What does children's ministry need? What does student ministry need? And then to figure out who determines salaries. I mean, it's like, we can't do that, I remember the first year I was here, I formed some sort of we had deacons, but we formed some sort of financial team just to consult with beginning and end to the career, just right now, just for these few months, consult with, help us do the budget, and then we'll dissolve the team. But we need some outside, advice on some things. But again, when John began to take that over, and I would say that it wasn't a hard lesson for John to learn. He learned it quickly and has really helped us as a church grow in that area and to show faith in the Lord and handle the money wisely. So I appreciate all of that. Mike, you serve in what ministries?
I teach the FOF class, Fundamentals of the Faith. I've been doing that for many years.
And you've been doing that since we brought FOF to the church.
Well, John started.
Oh, John started.
Yeah, I took over from
What I
him.
meant to say was John started that ministry, and then we took it away from him. That wasn't working, and no.
I'm just
He's done a
learning
great
tonight
job.
how connected Mike and I are.
I know,
yeah,
it's kind of
I
come
forgot
together.
about that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you each have 3 sons. Your last name both begins with R. There's a lot of things the Lord did tonight to put this team together right
Yeah.
here for tonight. So, yeah, so you both did FOF. So, but you've been doing it for most of the years.
Yeah, I've been doing it for at least 10 years, I think. I'm also the elder over the safety and security of our church. And we've got many volunteers for that. They're so good. And I also, my wife and I both serve in the college and career ministry, Devoted. And it's a blessing to serve alongside of her in that.
And that's on Friday nights.
Yeah.
And then the conference that comes up once a year and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. And I just want to tell you, again, from the security side of things, this team, and Mike, with his leadership and his team that he's put together and the deacons that are involved, Andy and others, it's a great team. I mean, these men take it seriously. They watch out for you as a congregation. And I tell you what, in the world we live in, we've got to be wise about that, and they are. And they've got high standards, and they role play, they practice. They went to some outside training that was sponsored by an organization to help churches think through these kind of things.
Actually, most of that training was right here in this room.
Oh, right in here? Okay. Yeah, and so they do get together regularly for that kind of training. And so it's so, you should have a lot of, encouragement from that, knowing that we do take that seriously. I've had a couple of new people come to the church along the way in the last year and ask me about that. So is this a safe place? I mean, what do you men do? And to promote safety. And I said, well, we trust the Lord, obviously at the end of the day, everything's in his hands, but we also have this team. And so I so appreciate that. Last thing I can ask you, because we're out of time, is, and also the FOF. I don't know how many people have come through FOF by this time. Sometimes we've had 2 classes and with some other teachers, but we've had quite a number of people come through that. So if you've never been through FOF, Fundamentals of the Faith, it's for people who aren't believers checking out Christianity. It's for new believers to grow. It's for believers who have been believers for many, many years wanting to go back and rejoice in the fundamentals of what they believe. You should sign up for that discussion class, FOF, the next time it's offered. But just to end our time, what's the most encouraging thing and most challenging thing of being a lay elder? Both sides of that, John.
I would say, not really per se being a lay elder. I would just say, pastoral work in general. One of the most encouraging things for me, I love it when people tell me they're praying for me. That's really big. I can't tell you how big that is, and how it often comes when you need to hear it. But I would say, we do work week in and week out. You're studying, you're teaching, you're counseling, discipling, you're meeting with people. And week to week, you don't always see tons of growth, change like you want. And sometimes it can just feel like a lot of hard work all the time. Volunteer work too, for a lay elder. And yet, when people actually go through trials and they persevere, and they're going back to the truths you've been pouring into them, that they've been sitting under in the Word of God, when they're able to resolve conflicts together, and really strive and make it through difficulties of life, that for me really is very encouraging, because it's just seeing fruit of people that the Word of God has taken seed, It's taken root inside of them, and God uses that when they need it. The grace is there through what you've been pouring into with people. So I think for me, that's probably one of the most encouraging things when we see people persevering. And what was the second half of that? Discouragement?
What's the most challenging?
Challenging. I related this to the elders not too long ago. It's, for me personally, it just feels like a lot. It's a lot. We need more elders. We need more men and women in this church discipling, ministering to one another, pouring into one another. The church, like Carrie said, I've been here since it was down to 50-ish people, give or take, Now I don't know if we're averaging 650, I'm not sure. Somewhere over 600. It's a lot of people. And the reality is, when you're at 50 or 100, you know everybody here, you know what they believe, you know why they're here. Today, we have, and many of you here right now, have come for many different reasons, different backgrounds, different histories, different levels of theological knowledge or biblical knowledge. People are just all over the place when you start growing to the way we have. And so it just creates more challenges, and I feel that. For me, I feel like there's just not enough time to be able to minister, care for people, and help grow everybody the way I'd like them to grow. So, yeah.
Mike, how about you? Encouraging and challenging side of things.
Yeah, similarly, anytime that I have the opportunity to help someone see what Scripture has to say about that particular issue, and they just get a connection point to what God has to say, and it really makes a difference, and just helps them in their personal relationship with Christ, because they see this is how God addresses what I'm going through. That's always just the most encouraging thing to me. And like John said, it's it is a lot as far as the downside. It's just at times time commitment or whatever. But more than anything, it's just there's a weight to some of the things that we see. The pain and the sin in people's lives. It just it's a lot at times.
You lose a lot of sleep when you're an elder, I think, over things, especially after our meetings that go long sometimes. Well, thank you, men, and I appreciate so much the lay elders. It's a time commitment. Those of us who are on staff and get to work up here and study and things like that, we're always aware of the fact that these men are working out there, 40 plus hours a week, 50 hours a week, whatever it might be, and still looking for carving out time to study and shepherd. And that's a great challenge, but the Lord sustains us, and the Lord has grown an elder board, and that we appreciate so much the unity and that we have, and the camaraderie and all that, and just grateful that we get to serve this church. So let's pray for these men, and you'll hear some more others that are coming up the next couple Wednesday nights. So we have four others to interview. Father, thank you for this time tonight. It just refreshes my own heart to rehearse a little bit what you've done in your providence according to your sovereign plan for Twin City. And so we thank you for that. We give you the glory for it. We know it's not due to any one person, any 2 people, 6 people. It's your sovereign work in your time, your way. And so we're grateful for it, for all that. I thank you for John and for Mike. I thank you for their faithfulness to the church family and their love for this church family, their love for you. I do pray for them. You would sustain them in their jobs, their careers, because they have challenges there as well, and they carry a weight there in their careers and in their families, and then on the church on top of that. So I just pray you would sustain them. I pray for Stacy and Amanda as well, that you would encourage them, and just appreciate them so much as well, as they are such wonderful helpmates to their husbands, and as they serve here in the church, they do so much. So I thank you for them. But I pray for their boys, each of the set of boys here, that the ages that they are now, and some married, and some in the military, and some finishing school, and some making their way in careers and jobs. Lord, all the different things that they're facing now, I just pray that you would continue to work in the hearts of their sons, and to grow them through the years even more spiritually, and as they grow in their gratitude for their fathers, and what their fathers have done for them, even in all their moments of frailty. So I commit John and Mike to your hands for your glory. In Christ's name, amen. Well, thanks for being here tonight. Ran a little over again. We've never done that before. We've never run over before, but tonight we did. No, we do that every once in a while. So thanks for sticking with it. We'll see you Sunday. You're dismissed. Or someone will see you Sunday.